Hello and welcome to Monday's Terrace podcast. I'm Graeme Thewliss and today I am joined by Tony Anderson.
Yes, Graeme. How we doing, mate? You all right?
I'm good. I'm trying to figure out how long we could potentially waffle about our lives before we need to delve into this week's Premiership action.
Yeah.
Because as the dear listeners know, Tony, we try and do our very best to put a positive light on things and a positive spin on things and highlight the very best of Scottish football. From time to time, though, sometimes they're just stinkers. Some weeks are just stinkers, and this week is just a stinker. Like there's a remarkably interesting series of things to talk about in what was a whole collection of fucking terrible games of football.
Yeah, and it's starting to, the old every season you think the teams are getting shitter. I think me and Fowler were talking about that on a pod, and I think this is the season where people are roundly quite shit.
I think they are just quite bad this year as well. Like there's a whole collection of teams, like even like Aberdeen are not a terrible football side, but are doing stupid things. So as such, are kind of a bad footballing side. Hibs, from time to time, look like a passable and entertaining football side. Other points, not quite so much. Hearts, simply just slogging it out. But enough. Right? We'll get into all of these teams individually. But there's a whole collection of things in this week which we'll say like 3 out of 10 broadly.
Yeah. Well, no, I've just noticed I've left a towel hanging up behind me, as you can see here. So
if you want to go take it down, you're welcome to, Tony.
You know what I will. Otherwise, people will probably think that's the most interesting thing that's going to happen on this week's pod. on the Discord. Tony had his towel up.
Tony, still you go whip us down a towel. Hopefully Fowler won't be using this one as for a clip. But you never know. Given the lack of any actual footballing action that happened this week, maybe this is the bit that Fowler is going to use for a clip just to highlight the reality of humanity. Good. Anyway. Nonetheless, right. Let's kick off to the highest scoring game of the weekend, which takes us to whatever Dennis Park is called at the moment, some Scott Foam Stadium, where Hibernian, your boys Tony, defeated Dundee 2-1.
Aye, it was actually quite a good game. Definitely do think this impossibly Aberdeen Rangers were the sort of two decent games of the weekend. I had a lovely time in Dundee. Got the train up at about 10:30. Then I went to the Athletic Bar. They didn't have any sport on. So then I went to the Ambassador Lounge.
Lovely place.
And that was very Hibs. Jane Park and her crew had all turned up. My mate borrowed Jane Park's charger. and it came back with less charge in it. which I laughed at a lot. But she
how long was it plugged in for?
Honestly, it must have been about 20 minutes. I think what really happened was the guys forgot to actually switch on the plug, but that's not as fun as imagine the filth that's now on these phones.
I was just enjoying the idea that the plugging into Jane Park's charger's just stealing things from folks. So cool, fine.
She fucking crashed into my mate outside the train station. We were just standing there. She crashed in and she's like, "You make a better door than a fucking fuck off." So the metaphor, she's going to be arsed it. She's going to be arsed it. And her and her crew bought some of the most wild rounds I've seen at a pre-match away day. But they had a good time. I had a good time. And we got to the ground. There was good Hibs support. I like Dens. I think Dens is a good stadium.
Yeah, I'm the same.
I prefer it to Tannadice because Tannadice is too tight. I mean, for you, Graeme, Tannadice must be impossible.
I miss the days when they just used to sort of usher you into the bottom tier, because once you're on the bottom tier, nobody really gave a shit what you're doing, so you're quite happy to stand for the 90 minutes and nobody bother you. Upper tier, that's not happening. So it's ultimately, I've got a permanent groove just below my kneecap from just being at Tannadice about 3 times in my life.
But Hibs started really very well. I thought Hibs played really well first half. You can really see the progression in the style in the team in the first half. And Dundee, I think, kind of were hoping to do similar job as what they'd done at Easter Road when they got the 0-0 draw, where they sat in for large periods, but they still looked very, very threatening at Easter Road for for parts of it, but the Hibs were they really looked really confident. They were good on the ball. I suppose it'd be remiss of me not to just kick off and talk about Jair Tavares. I mean,
I'm gonna have to backtrack quite dramatically on Jair Tavares. I feel
it's wild. It's good fun because always been it's just now that he's doing a lot of chatting in the media and you're getting a bit of insight into maybe what his time was like under Lee Johnson. It's like seems really, really shoddy way to treat
just professional. Just like it's one of those things. It's not just a footballing thing. It's just bad. It's just bad way to treat somebody. It's a bad way to treat a person as a manager, regardless of whether you work or what your job is. It's a shite way to treat somebody.
Yeah, like I always wonder this with some. I get when there's attitude problems. I get even when you're trying to force people out. But like a 21-year-old when he's signed 20-year-old who's come all the way over and he's never been away from home before. I just think, if he's not been a bother, even if he's shit, just like look after him a bit.
Yeah.
And don't ostracize him, because that must become impossible. Really, if you're a young kid. And I mean, Will Fish was in the media after saying that he barely knew who Tavares was. And because he's been here for so long, he actually said, I've not seen him around. But in this Hibs team, with the style the Hibs are playing, he nominally plays on the left in a 4-4-2, but in the style he very much comes in on the inside. He all the avenues when he attacks is coming off the left flank and coming inside. He only goes one-on-one with defenders out wide on the left, quite rarely, for what you would assume for a left midfielder. But with the way Hibs play with the passing at the back and the style, Tavares' ability to play on the half turn and open up now looks like that is a really, really key component to how Hibs are going to line up, and it start to make me think, would it even work without him?
Well, this is it. I was kind of curious. It was one of the things I was going to ask you, because I really like Newell. I have my doubts about Levitt, but he is a decent footballer, so him on the half turn again is fine. Josh Campbell, if you take Tavares out of that midfield, then the play has to come. There's nobody else that can really play in the same sort of way as Tavares is for Hibs at the moment. So the ball's kind of got to go left in that situation, because, as we know, Josh Campbell has a lot of talents, has a lot of ability, can't quite do that. He's not really. If you play the ball him in that situation, the ball will come directly back to the centre half, and you'll end up in the same situation that you're in already, because he doesn't have the wherewithal to be on the half turn and step away from people. So you immediately see the value of Tavares in the system more than anything else.
Absolutely, and Josh Campbell, the system's really suiting him as well. So I think there's with Montgomery, I've mentioned before that this system, and I know it's a different system when we have the ball, when we don't have the ball, etc., etc. It doesn't work for some players, like Eli Yuan starting to maybe look like one of the guys it won't work for, and I'm really pushing to start seeing. I would like to see Tavares Yuan play up front. Really, I think that would be the best place for him in this sort of lineup. But it really works for Josh Campbell would play, because he just trades with Boyle, and it's either him on the right or Boyle on the right, and they sort of trade over it and who plays up front. But with Campbell, he gets to work hard and support his fullback with Miller. Miller obviously has the athleticism to want to go on the outside quite a lot on the outside, so it means that Campbell gets to play on the inside more, which suits him. And the game plays a lot quite in front of him in this style. So it's more about his movement. It's all about his hard running. Obviously, he gets opportunities to shoot and score, rather than being sort of in the centre of midfield where maybe he's sort of he's not got a great touch. He's not got a great range of passing. So that really shows him up a lot. But this style, it does seem to get the best out of him, and he seems to have really taken to it recently. Now that he's played sort of 3 games on the bounce.
Campbell's an interesting one, because he almost always feels like that. Like, whatever system you put him in, if you just give him that 3 or 4 game run, he'll figure out a way in which to be useful in it. Yeah. The first couple of games, he'll look a bit awkward, a bit difficult within it. But just give him a few, just keep asking him. He seems to be and certainly it's been from the various selections of managers that Hibs have had, they've always been sort of fulsome in their praise of him and his work rate and things like that. And that's sort of, you're beginning to see that now. Just give him the time just give a bit of space and let him figure out how to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, because he wouldn't be working out, he would play him centre midfield in a 4-4-2. It would never work. It wouldn't be enough. But the other issue with this formation is, like, as you say, whether you like it or not, it means that you can't get Jago, Levitt, and Newland, even though, like, on paper in your mind that would work. It sounds like the attributes would all complement each other in there. And like you see, with Yuan, it seems we're not going to get them both in the game. And with Venti, it brings out a lot of his abilities and the way he likes to play, but something you're like, I would like to see him just in the box more. But he did set up the goal for Tavares. In terms of Dundee, Graeme, once they sort of got to grips with it, and after Hibs had scored, that sort of like really woke them up. Because I was expecting a lot more. I was quite shocked when I was at the start, like how little Dundee were really taking part, considering I was assured by Gary Cocker amongst people that Dundee were fucking incredible. But they really didn't take part. But once they did get going, I mean, I'm not the first person to say it, but Owen Beck, man, what a player! What a player he is!
He's so much fun, right? He's absolutely brilliant. And like as much as Beck brings this to that side of the park, and like the entire Dundee team almost feels like it's set up in an almost sort of ski-whiff fashion to just get the most out of Beck, so everyone else then covers to make that space, and everyone shifts and moves across, and that's fine. But to me, one of the real benefactors for it is Luke McCowan as well. Every time I've seen McCowan, like, he was one of these guys. I wasn't sure whether he was going to fall into that kind of, we're talking about in the terrace chat during the week of like the guys that they're too good for the Championship, but they're not quite good enough for the Premiership. Guys like Josh Mullen, guys who are really fine players on their day, but in terms of consistent performance at the Premiership, they just lack a little bit of either a bit of physicality or a bit of pace or just a little bit of technical ability. But the more he plays, the more competent and the more confident he looks at this level as well. And I thought on Saturday, him more than anything else, as much as Beck was bombing down the wing and doing all the bits and pieces, doing everything that needs to be done, it just freed up McCowan just that little bit in there as well. And it takes a little bit of the pressure off Boateng in there to maybe sort of less reliant on him. Gives Cameron a little bit of breathing space as well, who maybe wasn't as good as he has been at points. But I was really impressed with him again. Dundee didn't win the game, obviously, but Beck and McCowan kind of pairing over on the left-hand side of midfield and the wide, I thought it was just superb.
Yeah, because I prefer McCowan playing in this sort of central role in a 3. I think he gets a lot of freedom because Cameron's, again, not maybe a million miles from Josh Campbell in terms of he's really, really work rate. His physicals are really good. So he's going to get round the pitch, Cameron. But then you've got Boateng, who's a quite a cute player that I quite like. He's
impressive.
Yeah, he's nice and he's rangy as well. But so that means McCowan, there's a lot less onus on him for when he plays out wide. I always feel like he can get a bit isolated sometimes, and this allows him to drift around the pitch. And obviously he's got that quality of Beck that he can bounce the ball off as well. So the two of them, it's like that's where like Dundee's real attacking quality comes from. But Beck, to go back to him, he's the playmaker of that team. It's not everything goes through him. He's driving the run he made where Bashiri just had to eventually just put a stop to it.
That was absolutely brutal. It was absolutely brutal. Like, it was one of those ones where like it's never anything more than a yellow card, because like it's never anything more than a yellow card. But it feels like it should be something more than a yellow card on that one, because it's never a red. But that was savagery, absolutely common too.
I've always said that those ones is the ones that we do need to turn into reds, because then you can't do it. You can't then Beck from a Dundee perspective, because it's always the people take them out when it's the counter attacks. So when it's completely deliberate, or someone's going on amazing. They're meant to be good things to be enjoyed. We should always create an environment where that can just get completely shut down.
I quite enjoyed Bashiri cutting him in two, Tony.
Yeah. In fairness, I certainly did. I was screaming at someone else to do it. I mean, because I was thinking he went past Campbell and it was still inside their own half. I was like, that's the time to do it. Do it then and stop them. But yeah, I really enjoyed. I thought that after the goal they improved and McCowan got a few good chances. But if to talk about like the Hibs opening goal, this is sort of like everything that. So I've been preaching really about Hibs. It was like the time to really witness it. And Tavares got away a couple of times. He did give the ball away a couple of times, doing a similar thing as I said yesterday. As I said earlier, like Tavares was sort of the main man that they were using for for breaking out from these passing drills at the back in the defence. But when he gets through and the Venti running wide, it's a really nice pass in for Venti, and then Campbell's just really intelligent, stepping over the ball. As people say, Campbell's better when he runs away for the ball. Here's an example. And then Tavares with a great finish. And yeah, I was really chuffed because I think it's one of those right now people start seeing what's happening on the training ground, and people start to get on board with it. And I don't blame people for not, because you do need to start seeing like evidence. So that got people on board. So Lewis Miller's header was great from the corner. It's really good. He gets up really well. He hangs in the air. He's really good at that, Miller, because he is just he's a specimen. Miller, that's what his main thing is all about. He's being an athlete. And then Dundee were just obviously knocking at the door after the sending off. I mean, I thought the first booking was never a booking. He's just trying to block the ball. But I can see how it looked like a booking for Lewis. I can see what the referee saw. The second one, he's silly because he puts his hands on him, but he doesn't actually do anything.
So this is what I said. This is what I was saying to you, Tony. He wasn't sent off he was sent off for stupidity. And you see this sometimes. You see this pretty regularly. Like players who are just too stupid to not get themselves sent off. Yeah. Like if he'd put his hands on him the first time and just put him down, I don't think he'd have been booked. I think it was the fact that he'd had 3 goes at it, and then by the time that Beck's actually driving towards goal was when he finally brought him down. So it's like, you've just been very stupid here. If you'd pushed him over the first time, he's never sending you off for that. When he's
facing away, aye.
When he's facing away, he's never putting you off for that, unless you were at the game, I wasn't. So unless there was like 7 other Miller fouls between his first booking and his second booking, which doesn't seem impossible, but like it was too stupid. Having 3 goes at pulling someone down and then eventually doing it, that's a booking. It's just out of sheer stupidity.
I was laughing because Miller. Sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought there. But Miller was really good outside of that, and he was pushing forward. But yeah, he's sort of been hard there. And Beck was doing the imaginary yellow card, which is meant to be a booking in itself. He'd already been booked. So what could have happened is the fun bit of Miller getting sent off and then Beck getting sent off for it. But Dundee, they created a few chances. I mean, the one when Tony Doors just...
the one that he just needs to throw himself at it.
Why
you can see
it?
him just hesitate. I don't know whether there was a shout. To me, it looked like someone else had given him a shout.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that was maybe one of the Hibs players had given him a shout. Somebody gave a shout, because there's no way in which he's not going to go and attack that. It's the only way I could see that being a lot. Like, it was... You just needed to attack it, get it on target, have a go.
Like, sometimes you can overly complicate things. It's a lovely ball's been crossed in. You're close to it. Try and chuck your head on it. But Hibs managed to hold on, which was a big thing, because with what's been going on with Hibs in the last whole season, really, there's so many late goals, and you just once he got sent off, and I was like looking at the watch, going, that seems very early. There's like 30 odd minutes to go.
Is time still linear? Is time still 60 seconds in a minute?
Yeah,
60, I don't know. Yeah,
it's a horrible sort of end to the game, but Hibs saw it out, which is really good. So two sides seeing the team sort of develop into the style a bit more. They all looked quite comfortable and interchanging positions. Neil dropping in and getting the ball, that all worked a bit better today than it didn't look as jarring as it maybe did in other games, and it created chances. And Hibs had really good control of most of the first half, and then they had to dig in, which is something they really struggled with. So all in all, a good day for Hibs and a good day for Montgomery in terms of showing that the team is moving forward, and I think that's more important than anything, because Hibs it's a lot of away games coming up in this period. We're playing Aberdeen next week, which now seems like a really, really big game.
Yeah.
So, and now Hibs into the top 6 now, and that was always the case over that period there, is that no matter, everyone was being shit, so all it took was, if you're able to put 3-4 wins together, which is possible for Hibs, because it's Aberdeen, then Livingston. Hibs can win those 2 games. There's no reason not to. And then suddenly Hibs if they do that, there's a decent chance they'll be in 3rd place already.
Yeah. So going from one team to... I was going to try to do something like that. Good, no links there.
One from one team to another team.
We're going from one team to another. We're going to Parkhead.
Yes. Okay.
Where Motherwell scrapped, clawed and bit their way to a point, which was, truth be told, it was when Motherwell, they were starting to, football's back from the international break. I was like, no thank you. No interest in that. Don't really want to do that anymore. Had my fun at the start of the season. Not so fun anymore. Nonetheless, Stuart Kettlewell's boys turned it around to grab a point, which in the end I would argue we were entirely deserving of as well. Like, absolutely fine. Celtic were stinking. I think we, just before the international break, I think all of us had kind of looked at Celtic and gone, you know, they look like they've finally got themselves around to Rodgers. They've got players back. Players are coming back from injury after the international break. There were more bodies there. But here we are, post international break, still chucking on Mikey Johnson, hoping that something happens. I don't think Celtic have anything to worry about, simply on the basis that Rangers, and we'll come to them, aren't very good. But I don't think you're going to enjoy it very much. I don't think there's going to be any great pleasure out of this season, other than once you get to the end being like, okay, we've got 2 trophies probably. That's something, I suppose. But they're fucking not good. And given that they have overwhelmingly the majority of players that they had last season, which was just exciting. It's fun to turn up and watch your team go up and scud people, but even if they're not scudding people, just being exciting playing football. This team is not that. This team isn't that. I don't think this team will be that. I don't think Rodgers is going to take the handbrake off to let them go and do that. They're just fucking boring. And again, as always, when teams like Motherwell go to Parkhead and get a point, there's any number of boys willing to tell you that, this Motherwell just turned out to not play football. Fucking correct. Absolutely correct.
That's how what Celtic have to deal with. That is the whole point. And if they don't do it, that means they've played poorly. That is
yeah. Maybe fucking learn something from it and don't lose every game in Europe 3-0
or 6-0.
Either way, just maybe take a learning from that opportunity there.
Because it's not the first time. It's not like this. I mean, we've had it at Easter Road. They had it at Fir Park when the first time round, where they got away with it. See, these ones they're really good at the time if you're a Celtic fan, because it did look class the end of that game. But it's paper over cracks because it happens in such a dramatic way that you do just forget the other 90 minutes were pretty turgid. Obviously, they've done this against St Johnstone at Parkhead. So you're talking St Johnstone and Motherwell over the last period. Like some of the worst, like not good teams. Yeah. And like St Johnstone was like one of the only points they fucking got, and that's really, really galling if you're Celtic. And it just doesn't seem like they don't seem to have the sequences. They did have Ange Postecoglou, and it just seems they don't seem to press as hard. When I watch them, it's not as intense. When you play them, you do feel like you get a bit of a rest against them in periods, which never ever happened under Ange Postecoglou.
No, and it was the kind of relentlessness of that, and it always kind of tickled me a little bit that it got to basically the hour mark of every Postecoglou game, and he took off the 2 central midfielders because they were absolutely done in. Which, like, as a whole part, like, we're going to build a squad where we have guys that can play for an hour and then get replaced with 2 other guys to keep it going for the last half an hour. Like, if you can make 5 substitutes, why would you not do that? It makes absolutely perfect sense. And yeah, as I say, just not a thrilling Celtic side, and particularly with the goal that they lost as well. Like, Motherwell obviously conceded to the second penalty we given away. Absolutely, for what it's worth, absolutely no complaints on either penalty from me. Like, the first one, Mugabe's really unlucky because he does the right thing in terms of getting in the right place. It just takes like an awkward ricochet, and he just goes lunge to try and win the ball, and it fine, clumsy, but not the worst decision he's made this season.
And it won't be.
No, the one at Livingston is by a distance the worst decision he's made this season. And then the second one as well, like, I can't get my head around what Butcher's thinking about. And again, we'll come on to this a little bit when we get to the Aberdeen game as well. But like, Mikey Johnson is number 1, Mikey Johnson. Number 2, he's not getting to the ball. And number 3 is if he does get to the ball, he's still fucking Mikey Johnson. It doesn't matter. Just let him go.
What's going to happen if it's at the byline anyway? But because if he does get there, he's not going to be in a position to score it because he'll be stretching that much. But it just has to. This could be I really don't want to talk like this. It could be the good part of VAR. Could be that this can kill the peeling back in the box. I say that's the good part, but again, I've got a bit of the opinion of you is that the physical and the shit bit of football is something that I kind of quite like at time to time.
I also have some thoughts on this generally as well, and we'll get on when we get to the Aberdeen game as well, but nonetheless. Again, Kelly saving the first one, fair play, stupid run up from Palmer. Motherwell then immediately going up the other end and scoring through. Like, Motherwell conceding a goal, immediately bringing on Theo Bair and Conor Wilkinson being like, here's the answer, lads. And then it's suddenly somehow being the answer 30 seconds later. And not to complain about it at all, not to gripe it at all, because it was absolutely right. But there is something really, really funny about Motherwell scoring and then almost immediately a board going up saying 10 minutes of injury time. If you're into your conspiracies and things, you're gonna love that more than anything else in your life. There should have been 10 minutes of fucking stoppage time because Liam Scales had like brain surgery on the field, it looked like. But it was just as a purely visual moment, very fucking funny. Really, really fucking funny.
So so if you're looking at this, if you go back to the Celtic team, Taylor is, this is again not the first time it's been mentioned. He's having a poor season.
Should have been put off in this game as well.
Yeah, like he's having a poor season this season. I mean, you're looking at him and Ralston, it's great. And the fullbacks become quite important, especially with Palmer, who looks like a good player, but he's not quick. And he doesn't want to go on the outside. He wants to come inside the tight, yeah. and that's fine. Again, the wide players do different things. I'm not saying, but if he's doing that, and it's sort of like taking away the thing that Taylor was doing last season, where he was coming into midfield a lot. He's not doing that under Rodgers, which again is fair enough. I'm not saying that every team should be doing inverted fullbacks or anything like that. But it's if Taylor probably prefers to do that than be the guy that goes on the outside all the time. It's like it's one of those that maybe it's went from having a manager who actually discovered how to make you the best player you can probably be with your attributes to suddenly now under a manager who takes that away from you, and then the player in front of you doesn't suit you whatsoever. It's such a, it just shows like football. It's so quick. There is no time. You're never standing still as a player, because you wouldn't have been surprised if Taylor got a move or something off the back of how good he was playing. He was like a really key component for Celtic, but he still might, because I think I spoke to this about Amy on a pod, that because he's shown that he can do that inverted fullback role really well, someone might fancy it, because there's only so many players that have sort of got that proof already that they can do it. So it might just be the case that he might just have to move because
tough it out and then go and try and do that somewhere else, or somebody lets him go and do that.
In Palma, it's like a bit of Schadenfreude there, because I thought he was pish at the start, then he started running riot, and I didn't like being wrong. Oh no, fuck! I was slagging him, but yeah, it was a really bad penalty, and a big moment for Kelly, Graeme, because not been good for, I can't remember the last time he's been good. Really,
he's not been good. I've mentioned this a couple of times, I think, but just every time he comes back from international camp, he seems to be a worse footballer. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's I don't know. It's just it's been taken out of his daily routine and stuff like that, and he's put somewhere else, and he just takes a wee while to spin back up to club football and stuff like that. I don't know. I couldn't put a finger on it, but and again, that might just be totally made up. But it's always been my impression that whenever he comes back from Scotland camp, it takes him a game or two to get back to his best.
I was quite enjoying watching the one thing I noticed for the highlights. Was I thought still Motherwell, without seeing a lot of the ball, when they did get the ball, there was a bit of purpose in it.
Yeah,
it wasn't
definitely.
Just, you weren't just like getting caught with the ball at the back and then try to hold on to it. And this is the key when you play Celtic, is that you do need to carry it out a bit. You do have to be brave.
Put them under a little bit as well.
Aye.
Brodie Spencer, he's been kind of he's been kind of up and down since he arrived at Motherwell, and he's got a tough job to follow, given that Furlong and Johnson had such a good season for his last year on either side as wing backs, and I don't think naturally he's certainly not the natural left back either, but just he showed a lot of bravery in this game, which in the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, I kind of feel he's almost withdrawn himself a little bit from games. But in this one, he turned up big style in terms of just feeling like, I'm going to win the ball and then I'm just going to run with it. That's all I've been asked to do. If I take the ball 30 yards up the field and run it out of play, fine. Like, it doesn't matter. I've taken the ball 30 yards away from goal. I've let us get back in. I've let us get set up again. And I do wonder whether just simplifying things for him has made it easier for him at the weekend. Just like, you don't need to think so hard about what you're doing. You don't need to be paying so much. Just win the ball and take it away. And that was the kind of turning point, when one of the turning points for Motherwell, when Cadden arrived in the team under Mark McGee, I think it was. Essentially just went, McGee ended up with this weird system because, as you know, Chris Cadden can cover like the entirety of a side of a pitch on his own.
Mm-hmm.
I just went, right, you just go and stand there, and what we're going to do is we're just going to clip the ball into that space, and you take the ball and you run it 60 yards up the field, and no one will catch you. And he just did it over and over and over again. And that was kind of him arriving in top flight football and just giving that sort of space and getting himself that confidence as he built himself into the game. And I do think there's a lot of, as much as it sounds very sort of basic, just getting people the confidence to be playing at this level helps enormously.
Absolutely. And the confidence that these Celtic players that have been brought in since the summer, hardly any of them look like anywhere near Celtic players. Like Home got taken off at half time, and I feel like maybe that's not happened. They're going, but I'm sure he was getting criticised by Rodgers fairly recently, like about how he needs to show a lot more. Yang, I mean, he has his moments in games.
Yang does this thing where he's always in the right spot and in the right position, and he's about to do the right thing, but doesn't he? That was like, it was his header. There was a header, I think it was before, just before Celtic got the second penalty. He had a wonderful chance to take the lead and just nodded it wide. It was just that. It was what, as I say, he just kept putting himself. He would find himself in the right area of the pitch. He would go and take someone on, but then do the wrong thing, or he would stumble while he's trying to take them. Just continually almost doing it right. At some point or another, he'll put it all together, and he'll get a hat trick. But in the meantime, struggling.
Did Celtic change formation when they brought O on, or did Furuhashi just drop into sort of midfield a little bit? How did that work?
He just went through the middle, so there wasn't any great. Certainly from, I mean, it was kind of the majority of the game was Motherwell kind of just trying to hold on in large part as well. So the Celtic formation was fairly fluid at the best of the time as well, but it kind of changed a little bit more to sort of him as the focal point with everyone playing behind him, as opposed to the sort of the three higher up as well. But again, it's one of the games which, well, and I've seen it quite a lot recently. Every time you see Celtic sort of struggling in that situation, like, you could really have done with Giakoumakis here. I think he would probably be the answer to your question here, but nonetheless. Anyway,
fair play. They just haven't improved at all. They've got weaker, Celtic.
Yep.
And I'll see. They might have to maybe put their hand in their pocket in January. I'm sure they can find something.
Just be more interesting, be more fun, have a laugh. You've got all the best players in all the best positions. Just have a laugh, have some fun.
And talk about people not having a laugh.
There we go, Tony. Link King. Go to the northeast. As Barry Robson is not having a laugh. He was a very grouchy man come full time, as he did the very serious walk straight out to have a chat with the referee. As Aberdeen failed to hold on against Rangers and ended up with a point, which, given that they're ninth in the league, maybe the point's important to them. Who can tell? Rangers won, Aberdeen won at Pittodrie. Where do we want to start, Tony?
I just wanted to talk just quickly about. I'd start to get pissed off being an Aberdeen fan, because he does this all the time. Robson, he is the most negative manager in the league. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's like this. I was saying this about before. It's always funny not getting the managers right at Hibs, Hearts, and Aberdeen. It's like during this period where they all were willing to spend money. They all had owners or money when they were actually willing to go and buy players, but they all didn't have the right guy at the time when this period finally came. And that's it, Rob. So it's just so, like, the first 15, 20 minutes, Aberdeen look really good. There is no reason to stop that just because you go 1-0 up, because it's not like they're not expansive at that period. They're just kind of going toe to toe, and they're allowing some sort of freedom to that period. Then they go 1-0 up, and they do it every time. And it's like, as I said, even in the semi-final against Hibs, they're playing. It's Hibs. Why do you have to play the single most negative way? It doesn't make any sense to me. There's plenty of good players here. They've got a manager who can get his. The thing about Robson, looks like he can get his instructions across, and he can get good performance out of them. And something we kind of expected. I said this at the start. I think we're going to see Aberdeen's best performances are going to be in Europe, in games where they get to play this way, and it's not a problem. And then obviously against Rangers, they've had some good performances there. But he just totally just gave up on that other side of the game and all in the second half. But if they moved out of the pitch and sort of played a bit, which they certainly were capable of, they could have went 2-0 up. You could win that game, but you don't have to wait till you don't have to try and hold on for an entire 70 minutes just because
you have a goal.
Aye,
I totally agree with you. I thought it was like Rangers they were up against it, and that, like you say, that sort of 15-20 minute spell where they couldn't figure out quite what to do with Sokler or Miovski. And I mean, first and foremost, is everyone just going to pretend that Sokler and Miovski aren't fucking twins? Like, it's genuinely freaking me out watching them as well, because that sort of from a distance watching a footballer, nah, not for me. But they couldn't figure out quite what to do with them because Sokler and Miovski were working it so well in terms of one coming and one going and dropping deep and flicking on, and they just, Balogun and Goldson were just all at sea trying to figure out what to do. And you're not going to, Lundstrom doesn't have the pace to drop in and help them with that either, so you're going to have to try and cut down the pass by pushing onto it, which means you need to be brave if you're Rangers, but if you miss it, then you're leaving your centre halves exposed. Like, just keep doing that. Like, it's not like the players which you're going to knacker in doing that are Sokler and Miovski, which is fine because you've got Duke on the bench. So see if you tire at your two centre forwards, that's fine because you've got one that's actually faster on the bench anyway. So you tire them out and then you keep. It was something under Graeme Alexander.
It's not like you have to even really overcommit men to do what they were doing.
Not at all.
They don't have to play like attacking football. You can still play in that rigid shape with the style that they were doing, and it was working.
That's what I don't understand, because it's not like Aberdeen don't have just an 11 within that there as well, because obviously you get Devlin on one side, Duncan on the other, and then you can look at guys like McGarry to come off the bench there as well, or Hayes, or Paul Vara can come into the midfield if you need more energy later, or you can put Duke up top, like I said, because he's fucking faster and more energetic anyway. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. I'm with you. I totally agree with you. I just don't understand it. Like you're doing something that the Rangers team can't really cope with. Just keep fucking doing it. There's a thing in like American football which is essentially just run the damn ball. Like, we'll just keep running the ball until they can stop us, and see, once they can stop us, we'll change it. But see, until they stop us, don't fucking change it. Just keep doing it. Just do the thing that's working. It was working. You were knocking them around the place. As it went in for half time, Rangers looked fucking punch drunk at half time. Like, we don't know how to deal with this. We don't know how to cope with this. Looking at the Rangers bench and certainly the changes that were made there, like, it was an attempt for Rangers to change what they were doing. And I understand like Matondo gives you a slightly different option in there and stuff like that as well. But fundamentally, you weren't moving them around. You were just getting them to try and change the bodies that were doing it. And they can't change the backline because they don't have anyone else to go and change the backline. They don't have a different system to play in there. They don't have quicker centre halves.
I think they've earmarked Robson done well. There was earmarked that Balogun's lost the main attribute, which was his pace, which is the main thing that he was really good at. That was the main that got him out of so many jams.
Yeah.
As a player, and he's that you could see that's kind of not there as you would expect. That had to happen sometime because it did last him years. Like even when he was 33, he was still really, really quick. But he lost it there because like Miovski and Sokler, neither of them looked quick, but they were able to get behind. And the goal from a Rangers point of view is a shambles. Really, I was like, because I was sitting there.
It's a great flick. The flick from Sokler's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Like really, really good centre forward play.
What a finish! What a finish that is. And Miovski's shoved a lot of words down through it because his whole game's come on a lot, and the ability to score was still there. Still not convinced he's going to be good enough for like some of the teams that like Lazio. When he gets linked to them, I'm always like, are we sure? But who knows? In Italy, everyone that goes there works for. So who knows? But yeah, and Rangers they did create some chances in the second half, but again I feel a bit of that was just Aberdeen, just because allowing them to have the ball that much, it's impossible for them not to. But even then, it's like some of the best moments are like that really weird shot that Lawrence had, which even when I look at it doesn't look right, but it was very technically probably was very good, but even I see it back, I'm like, I'm still not convinced that's good, but but he does it, and he's really unfortunate not to score, and just there's ongoing problem like we were saying about some other teams, maybe Hibs, possibly Celtic as well, with some guys, it's like they don't seem to be able to get the best out of the new managers can't get the best out of the arguably who the best players were before, and he's having this issue with Todd Cantwell as we're going on just now.
Yeah, just not really. Like it's, I don't know whether he wants more. Like the thing that Beale seemed really intent on doing was just having Cantwell just as a completely free role, and that seemed to be getting the most out of him. I get the impression that Clement wants a slightly more direct control over the game in terms of what you're doing. So he needs the system needs to work. So that ultimately comes down to Cantwell in terms of whether he's willing to do that and put in the hard yards to get there.
I don't like Cantwell wide. I know that he's got like what, to use my own reference points for Hibs, it's like kind of like Joe Newell, is that he looks like a winger and he can roll the ball. So I think people think he's a winger. I think that happened to Cantwell at Norwich, but they came round to it is that he is a much better, it's like quite a rangy, driving midfield player like Newell. So if I don't think that'll work when playing out wide on the right. And Rangers, it's just they just batter on the door, but it's not particularly like easy on the eye whatsoever. And it's another team I've just an old firm at some of the Celtic bored. Yeah. I'm bored of watching a lot of these Rangers players. And I already get a bit fed up of the Old Firm just in general because I get forced to watch their games every single week. And I have to because obviously we do this. So I can't not watch the live game because obviously you need to watch as many games as you can. I have to watch that every time. And now Rangers have had the same fucking players for what feels like 10 years. And I just like, move on, please.
Just steadily declining over the decade.
Yeah. Slowly but surely declining. These players, like Goldson's having... Goldson just looks much more vulnerable than he has done for a long time.
Yep.
This season, and that's including in the league. Because there was times when I just thought Goldson was just imperious. I didn't think anyone could do anything, and there was no issues there. But Lundstrom, Cifuentes, do we need the two of them playing? I don't think you do. But I think this happens a lot, and Beale was guilty for it as well.
Even back to Gerrard as well. It's like the Rangers don't play two holding midfielders challenge. Impossible. Can't be done.
Still, that bit, but I think you're right that Clement just strikes me as a guy you want. Just his look, the way he carries himself. That's a man who wants to have complete control of absolutely everything at the club. The penalty, Graeme, go on then. Take me. I know you had something to say about it.
So fundamentally, right, both this one and the one in the Motherwell game, my opinion is that neither of these should be penalties because neither of those players are going to get the football, whether they've been pulled or not, right? And I realise that's stupidity and that's not part of the laws of the game. And it's not a hill I'm willing to die on, but that's my feelings on it. However, the response to this has really baffled me, given that the same thing happened in two games, and in both games, these are both stonewall penalties. Like, I don't know if it's one of those things I'm kind of feeling like I'm being stupid here. And I'm looking at the one in the Celtic game with Butcher hauling back Johnson, and the one in the Rangers game with Goldson getting pulled back by Gartenman. Like, both of them, like, yeah, he's fucking hauled him back. It's VAR. If as a defender you do that and you get away with it, fucking fine, cool. I've got away with one there. You know what you're looking at there. You know that people will be looking at it. My biggest gripe with this is that, and it's similar to Craig Anderson's as well, in that if it's a clear and obvious, to me, where that falls into sort of the clear and obvious error bit, and I'm happy we told him wrong on this, that's fine. If he's not going to get the ball, is it a clear and obvious error? If he's not going to get the ball, why has it been referred to VAR in the first place? Because he's been pulled down while he's never going to get anywhere near the ball in any case. Maybe you're not allowed to make that judgment. Don't know. But, like, just fucking, like, Robson, like, Aberdeen as a whole over the past, like, month have just been causing it with people in order to try and get, like, it all feels very cynical to me in terms of getting their fans on side. Like, we're out here fighting for the fans, whatever else. Good. Maybe you are. Good. That's fine until you're getting fucking cuffed in games. But the situation like this, like Robson losing his head, being like, oh, it looks really bad. Like, your player pulled him back. Like, that is a penalty. Like, I don't know. As I say, I feel like I'm being stupid because I'm like, well, yeah, it's a penalty because he's pulled him back. Like, that's what the laws of the game are. You've seen it. I've seen it. In my opinion, shouldn't be. But again, I don't make up the fucking laws in the game. Because if I did, I'd do a fucking class job with it.
Game
Nonetheless,
would be all over the place, but
nah, I'd get what I want out of it, and that's all that matters. So yeah, fine. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on it, Tony?
just it's all about like I get that's what people will probably want from VAR. These are the kind of things you can take away, and you can allow the game. I get like I'm saying about the kind of cynical fouls. You could kill them in a moment, and then you're allowing for more goals. Because my thought process is what I don't know if it's what I want, but I know that's what the general
more goals, more fun.
Yeah, more goals, more fun, and arguably if you stop pulling in the box, means that more attackers will get the run on defenders. Just generally, because people will have to stop doing it. But at the same time, I know what it's just you grab shirts.
Fundamentally as well, I have and I realise this immediately delves into
strikers do it as well, and strikers do it all the time, and they watch it, and then we're getting down to who started it, which is the one really recently. Was it maybe Celtic or Aberdeen when they were trying to work out, or maybe it was down south. I just can't remember.
There was one last year of I think it was Motherwell or Ross County or something.
Oh no,
like
sorry,
that.
it was the one. I thought to stop not using English reference, but it was one in the Chelsea Man City game when the two of them were at it, and Haaland got a penalty the other week, and like they were trying, and the whole judgment on us about when does it start or who holds on for longer. And shit like that, I get really like, oh, for fuck's sake, man! This is what takes ages.
I also kind of have my doubts that these are the same decisions that will be made on a weekly basis up and down the country, and I feel that Rangers and Celtic are refereed to a different standard that everybody else is. But again, that's simply my conspiracy brain going off on one. But yeah, I actually take the point.
Referees are under more pressure. They're under more pressure in those games. This isn't about cheating. It's just that you are under more pressure.
Yeah. It's an entirely human reaction to being under more pressure, and it's not like a fault. It's not a criticism of them. It's just the reality of it. Like they are refereed to a different standard to the rest of us. Which, when in 3 weeks' time, or a weekend when Motherwell play Dundee and a Motherwell player hauls back a Dundee jersey in the box, like, will it be given? Probably not.
Yeah, St Mirren got one against Hibs. That one pretty obvious when a beater like dram back, and it was a really big load of the strip.
Aye,
but I don't know. But now what? Aberdeen have to go to Helsinki on Thursday, -17.
Yep.
Quite up for you coming back to Easter Road after that on a Sunday. That sounds pretty good to me. Absolutely. But when I saw that and I was looking, I was like, that's good. Chuffed to that.
Speaking of returns to Edinburgh, Craig Levein desperately wanting some attention as he arrived at Tynecastle, which didn't arrive, which is fucking hilarious.
Saying it all week, eh? Oh, what, did he cup his ears or something like that? Did he do anything like that? No.
No, he was just
wanted?
All the week he was like, oh, I fully expect to get a bit of treatment. Like, nobody cares, mate. Like, you were Hearts manager. Broadly, everyone's made their peace with it. I doubt anybody's particularly upset about it.
You were a Hearts legend. Why would they get booed? People wanted you gone because you were doing a job you weren't cut out for. Yeah. As a director of football, but
desperation from Levein for people at Hearts to be upset at him. None of which materialised. Brilliant. Really, really enjoyed it. I am really enjoying Craig Levein being back in Scottish football and like an actual football in Central Ireland, not on the radio because I also don't need that in my life. But yeah, Craig Levein back in football, just attempting to wind people up.
Was the Sacked in the Morning podcast his? Or was he just a guest on it all the time?
I don't know.
I'm not sure because I saw that it's still on. Is he still going to be on it? I don't know.
I wondered whether he had actually told them that he wouldn't be coming back, or whether he just had completely forgotten that he did a podcast. He just assumed it was just some. He didn't actually know they were being recorded. He thought he was just hanging out with his pals in the pub for a wee bit. Don't know. Ultimately, this takes us into a run of 3 games, Tony, in which are not massively interesting. Truth be told. St Johnstone look like a competent football team, is what I'll say about this more than anything else. Like, I am pleased that Craig Levein has done the very sensible thing and come in and said to Liam Gordon, for example, like, you're actually quite good, mate. Would you like a cuddle? And then we will just improve the things and we'll just keep you to do the things that you're good at.
And I'll give you a partner, like...
Just don't overthink it, mate. Don't try too hard. You're not playing football. Just win the ball, pass the ball, win the ball, get rid of it. either way is fine. Just
And he gives
simple.
him McGowan as well.
Yeah.
Because he was playing on the right centre back. And he's still athletic enough for a wee bit of foot race, not totally. I think he gets exposed when he's in midfield.
Yeah.
A bit of athleticism. But when you play in defence, it can be a bit different because you've got the bylines to use as like, you know what I mean? It's not
teammates, aye.
Yeah, and it's like you can't, so you can use that to squeeze things. And you don't need to be in mid. If you're in centre midfield, like there's no hiding place athletically. If it goes past you, they're gone. Then he made Liam Gordon look like a much better player than he has done recently. Hearts continued with the 3-5-2 with Kingsley having to play on the right hand side. But I was watching the highlights and what I've been reading is like obviously it suits Alex Cochrane.
He's him being back such a big boon for Hearts as well. It was the wee sort of skip past he went past. I think it was Costello, like he wasn't there, which again, not possibly the most difficult thing to do in the league this season. But just disappearing past Costello and his wee 1-2 and he was off and gone. And him being back from his, what was a duff ankle, has been a huge boon for Hearts as well. And much the same to like Beck and McCowan at Dundee, like we were talking about as well. It just gives Lowry as well just that wee bit more freedom and a wee bit more space and a wee bit less responsibility to do the hard yards and more responsibility to just get on the ball and do things.
Yeah, because Cochrane's reliable in a defensive sense, but he's also, well, I would never have guessed in the first season I saw him. I thought he was like fucking blandest fullback. I thought like the fucking James Browns of this world.
Yeah.
like just like, aye, he's fine. He's not criticising. He'll defend. He'll get forward a little bit. He'll play a deep cross. Can't get round. He can't do anything to get on the outside, but he'll support the wide player, and that's basically what he was. But then for there, he's come on loads. But the problem with Hearts, the problem with Hearts in a football sense.
I was about to say, the problem.
you got another 2 hours.
We now cut to Tony live from the pub in
Dundee. They just play with everyone's a number 10 now. They don't really have any sort of real pace. So I find like they've become relatively easy to kill, which also means they can still get wins because teams sit in against them because the game can be really squeezed. But it means the games are fucking dreadful. That they play in no matter really who anyone that's not a team that's like forced to go on the attack against them. So it's really only Hibs, Rangers and Celtic. Obviously Hibs fans wouldn't like Hibs just sitting in against it. That would be a problem. Obviously Rangers and Celtic can't do that. But like they've got with Lowry, Grant, and Grant I know has been a bit better, but Lowry, Grant, Boyce and Shankland is all wanting to have the same area, all very similar styles of players, and everyone just comes deeper for the ball. And if they're not got Vargas or Oda, who there's still question marks on about how effective these guys actually are, but you feel like some of them have to play because
just to offer something different.
Because it needs to be stretched. They miss Ginnelly so much, and in this game it was just, for what I looked at and for what I was reading, it was just Benny Beningame passing back to Frankie Kent.
I thought it was interesting. It was Joel had popped out the stats for his what's this thing called, the Hearts Bastards
Standard or something.
Hearts Bastards.
Hearts Bastards.
Was it most passes Frankie Kent with 100, most touches Frankie Kent with 112, and then second on the list was Kai Rolls. Like, yeah, you just do something else. Do something else.
Extremely un-Hearts as well.
Nobody's having fun, Tony. Yeah, nobody's having fun,
and it's extremely un-Hearts, and it's not what Hearts fans will want. And I don't mean that, and I don't mean that critically at all. It's just, it's what the Hearts fans, that they kind of know what they want, and Hearts fans, that's why they always feel quite comfortable within themselves. I think they've always understood who they want. And Alan Forrest had one of his bad games, so maybe we could stop this stuff soon. But Hearts really, they looked like Hearts still were able to see the game out pretty easily. It looked like St Johnstone had their best period after half time. It was more conducive into that, and it actually towards the end looked like that Hearts would be the team that would go on and score again. They were pretty solid though, St Johnstone, and they transitioned quite quickly for times, and that Robinson at left wing back was really good, and then Phillips and Smith stood out in the midfield, and Phillips is always a player that I just really like. I've always liked him since the day he came in.
He absolutely screams the sort of player to me who eventually one of Hearts, Aberdeen, and Hibs will take a punt on him, and he'll be absolutely stinking.
Yeah.
The entire time he's there. Like in the same sort of like the Yan Danda, when Hibs almost with the Hibs were going to sign Yan Danda, I was like, please let Yan Danda go to Hibs because he'll take a lot of money and he'll be terrible.
Yeah, it's like when Hearts signed Thewliss.
Yeah. Not gonna work.
Not gonna happen. Just not gonna work.
work.
But then the same is what it's always going to be with St Johnstone. Is Kane and May is just workhorses up front, and there needs to be some sort of quality. This is what when Nicky Clark's not there, because Nicky Clark, he might not be like the most deadly striker, but he's always been he's clever, he's cute, he's got quality, he can pick people out, he'll bring better out of one of those two. But when it's just those two, I just don't think it is. But they'll be under Levine, it'll be hard to beat. They'll just have to take their chances. And Mitov still looks great. So, fair enough to them, but that's it really that's not for me.
Yep. Let's head to Paisley as an own goal from Sean Kelly secured all 3 points for St Mirren. In the end, really comfortable St Mirren. Like I stand firmly on my take that I think Livingston will go down this season. They lack any kind of real spark within that squad. I don't know where it's going to come from. They keep losing games by really small margins, but again, they're never really in the game massively as well. So you get the impression of looking at it like, so they're right on the cusp of just turning things around, but again, just never really wanted huge, great opportunities for Livingston within the game. A struggle, a real slog for them this season. I think it's going to be, and I suspect that the results are going to start sliding the bad way rather than the good way.
When they actually start losing by more, and this period actually looks like the bit when they actually had some decent performances. That's when it really worries me when that happens with a team. But they just, with the death, whatever he done to Joe Newbley over the summer, I mentioned before when he tried to punt him into anyone, that seems to have really affected him. He's now using him at right wing back. He can't drop him because they don't have anyone to replace him with, really. But Newbley, he's lost it. He doesn't go past people anymore. He doesn't take the ball in the tight areas anymore. He plays really on the periphery of the game, and that was the guy you were thinking, right, they've kept him. That's who they'll hang their hat on, and him and Anderson will do enough if that's going to happen, even though I think a lot of us thought, because eventually it had to happen. They had to get relegated sometime. They do have to. Livingston can't stay up forever. They can't be like a Motherwell or even like before Kilmarnock did or Aberdeen. It just can't happen when you're constantly playing with the smallest budget. And now during that, the best chance was when Gogic struggled and Anderson took a bad touch. That was only shot, and you're looking at the St Mirren quite vulnerable. They were pretty poor against Hibs in the 2-2 draw, and then they got absolutely turned over by Dundee. So this is it was the ideal fixture for them to come back to, and that's just by the sounds of things. They had a bit of control, St Mirren, but they still didn't play particularly well. And obviously, the Boyd Muntz bringing the one bit of huge quality in the game really, with the reverse pass.
Increasingly impressed by him. He looks like a really nice find by St Mirren. Obviously, he scored an absolute screamer against Motherwell in the Cup, which ultimately does from the League Cup. But just every time I see him, he offers a little bit more, and like you say, the bit of quality to play the ball through for this, for Tanzer, for it as well. It's just a really nice just awareness of exactly where everything is in the pitch, exactly where he is on the pitch, and just that wee clip into the space where if I put it there, there's only one winner from it.
And then it's nice with Kilty coming off to the left-hand side as well. It's starting to be quite a nice little sort of trio between him, Tanzer and Kilty, because Kilty's always been a player that's annoyed me, because I always wanted a bit more.
Feel like injuries kind of held him back for a dose of the time as well.
But and he works hard, so I'm like, it's not that side of it, which is what you think. It was just one of those in-between players where you didn't know he was, when they're just an attacker of some description, and then they start playing the centre midfield because they don't have enough output, and then it's like people just try to find them because they like them, because they do have a bit of talent. But in that one, I think that kind of suits them a bit because they put quality players around them. And obviously Tanzer's the sort of the go-to guy with the way that they're playing. And then they've got McMenamin on the other side. But with Taylor, Gogic and Fraser, I quite like it because Taylor's got the pace to allow Tanzer to play quite high up, which obviously brings the best out of Tanzer for his crossing. And Taylor does all right with that. I know he had an absolute stinking game against Dundee, but apart from that, and there's still a sort of nearly decent balance out of that St Mirren side. There's not much more to add. I mean, there was the passing stats I was looking it up. I think neither of them, the number of like the possession reaching both of them possession reaching the opponent's half was under half, both under 50%. And average possession duration was 11 seconds for St Mirren and 9 seconds for Livingston. It's just that's not good. It can't be good.
Which takes us to our final game, Tony, of Ross County 0, Kilmarnock 0, as Derek Adams is back. So that's something. That'll be good fun. I suspect he'll upset somebody in the near future. One of my favourite things in trying to figure out things to talk about from this game was having a look through who scored, which is really useful in terms of it gives you wee match reports using the data from the game. So it tells me Ross County were effective at creating goal-scoring opportunities through individual skill, and Kilmarnock were effective at creating goal-scoring opportunities from long shot situations. So County got in the box and did fuck all. Kilmarnock didn't get in the box and did fuck all. Both sides were poor at finishes, and both sides were caught offside often.
And they were just, and that's Kilmarnock. Like that's the second time they're against Hibs. With Vassell, I know Vassell came on later on in this game, and I know they have won games because Craig Anderson pointed out to me when I said I thought Kelly looked really blunt without Vassell, and they did early in the season that he said they got some wins, but maybe it's away from home is the issue when you take Vassell out, because they play against Hibs. They played quite nice football. I was quite impressed with that, considering the tropes about Derek McInnes and obviously this Kilmarnock team, and they are direct and they do play Vassell a lot. And when him taken out of it, they move the ball quite nicely, but they just don't create anything and can't really be in late 2023 with like Watkins as your lone striker, man. It's like not for me, mum. And he's quite and I like Watkins. I've always liked him. I think he works hard. I think he's a handy squad player. But when you get to the stage where that's your main goal threat, you're just not going to be scoring goals, man.
What I will say about Derek Adams is that he immediately gets a plus point from me as he's stopped playing Jan Danda as like a wing back.
Yeah, thank God.
Whatever the fuck Malky Mackay was doing with him. It felt like he was living in some sort of Malky Mackay entrapped purgatory. But you were quite good for a little bit. So because you were positive and you had a nice time playing football that kept us up, what we're going to do is we're going to stick you at wing back.
Then he had him on the bench.
Perfect. Yeah.
For a very game, and he refuses to play him. He refused to play him and Turner in the same team. Like Turner's some sort of like over the top attacking player. Like Turner's good and he's agile and he can ball carry and he can get in and around the box, but it's hardly like you're carrying a luxury.
No thanks. No thanks, Tony. That's not for us. We're going to play Conor Randall every single week.
Still, because it worked once. Stop it.
Nah, man. Sorry. I again, great apologies to both County fans and Kilmarnock fans. And we've rambled on more than long enough, and we spent a lot of time on a lot of other games. Unless you one other thing.
Just interesting that they made the way Adams is that obviously he started with the back three, which is what they use most of the time. But at half time he pretty much went to a back four, and right away, which tells me that that's obviously what he wants to do. Yeah. But I thought like County looked like they started really strongly in the game. And they did create a lot of chances. They looked bang up for it. And if I'm being honest, I think Kilmarnock were probably fairly fortunate to not lose, going by the highlights. And Kelly, they need to get Vassell back. They need to make sure that they get those wide players going with him again. They're not reinventing the wheel. It doesn't have to be obvious stuff. But I think the idea is that Kilmarnock were going to finish in the top six were just a good day against Celtic.
I think I said before, but I think they're just short one player. They're short a central midfielder who's just a little bit better because they're still trying to use Donnelly or Polworth or McKenzie or various others in there to try and
Donnelly's never a top flight player, never.
Nonetheless, thank you, dear listener, for your time. We have got a little bit over today, but hopefully that's been good fun. Thank you very much for joining us, Tony.
Oh, my pleasure.
I say us as if it was anymore. It's just fucking me, wasn't it? Thank you very much for joining me. Tony and I are off to record a Patreon about our favourite bits about the Scottish Cup. So any Dundee United fans that are listening to Top Flight, just to remember what that feels like, you can tune in there because you're going to hear about fucking that. Thank you very much for listening. We will be back on Thursday with more Law League nonsense and TV shows and all the other gubbins as well. Say thank you, Tony.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.